Hi, Empress Justice here. If you'd like to check out daily readings, you can check them out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also check out my new readings, not only for July 2022, but for the upcoming full moon in Uttara Ashara. So go ahead and check those readings out on Empress Justice Tarot YouTube. Now, update on me. Once again, nothing has happened over here. Everything has been really quiet. There's been nobody's been bothered. Like, I haven't been bothered, and honestly I don't think they've been bothered either. So there's no beef at the moment. So what I'm about to talk to you about today is actually something quite interesting, because I came across some old posts of mine on Facebook, and I'm so glad I saved this. I'm so glad I posted this. This is one of those occasions where I'm really glad I posted this shit, because this was an email that I sent to Brighton Homemove 2 years ago when I moved here. So it wasn't even 24 hours after I moved to Brighton that I actually sent them this email. You'll see it in a minute, hang on. And it's basically spoke about the corruption that I was walking away from. I provided evidence of Brent Mind doing 3 things at once. They were trying to threaten to sue. Well, they were threatening to sue. They were threatening to section me. And they were threatening me with homelessness, all of which cancel each other out, especially these days. So I don't know where they were going with that. I think they were trying to scare me or something, but they just incriminated themselves. This was about evidence that I'd posted online of corrupt activities going on there, but that was a couple of years ago. Let's see what we have now. So hold on. Let me see what I posted of these letters. I didn't post them. Odd. Where are they? Let's see if I have a memory from 2 years back. I'm trying to look for a memory from 2 years back that I posted, but I can't seem to see it. Yeah, so 2 years ago. It'll be on Instagram and Twitter anyway, so if you want to check those out. So it's Seraphim Rage, at Seraphim Rage 25 on Twitter, and it is here, basically, T.I. Fabian on Instagram. So if you want to check out the correspondence that I actually wrote to Brighton Homemove, exactly what I said to them and exactly what I posted, then you can go ahead and check that out. But long story short, I told them that I was a targeted individual. I told them that not only was I a targeted individual, but that Niels Meltzer was doing a speech on it on October of that same year. And he has been speaking out extensively against cyber torture, which includes using military technology to target civilians. And I actually sent a testimony to the torture department of the UN, and I think a lot of TIs did underneath underneath groups. So I sent it as an individual. Another TI sent it within other TI groups, sent it to Niels Meltzer, or sent it to the department of the UN that specifically deals with torture. So like, we all played our part. And I told them about that. I also sent an email to Lloyd Russell Moyle, and I can't actually remember when I did that, but I knew it was pretty soon after I arrived in Brighton. I said to Lloyd Russell Moyle's team that I was trying to contact them so that they could give me housing, but the truth of the matter is that I just wanted to keep everybody informed of what was going on. So the time I arrived in Brighton, I immediately told everybody what the deal was. I told everybody what the deal was. I told people at the hostel what the deal was, and one of them lied, saying I was paranoid schizophrenic. There was another staff member there. I'm not going to reveal their name, but there was one staff member who said that I was paranoid schizophrenic, and another person who was staff at that place who said it was a complete lie, and the second one was right. It was a complete lie. The paranoid schizophrenia thing is often used to discredit people like me who have been subject to unlawful experimentation, quite often from a very young age. So when I first moved to Brighton, the first thing that I did was told them about what Brent Mind had been doing, that they'd been covering up for these people who were targeting me, basically. And I told them it was indeed a military effort. But now that I've been here for 2 years and I found out about Stop the War chapters all over the fucking country, there are two things going on in my mind. The first thing is highlighting the defense energy component of it and the effects on the human body. The second thing is considering how it ties into Big Pharma. Because think about this, right? There's a disease out there known as fibromyalgia, right? Now, fibromyalgia is said to be a nervous disorder that causes pain all over the body. Now, if you remember, I posted a video with people who were discrediting Havana syndrome, saying that Havana syndrome was nothing more than a psychosomatic illness. This is exactly where they've been going with covering up the unlawful experimentation they've been doing on citizens. This is exactly where they've been taking it. So we've got the 5G situation, we've got the electrosensitivity situation, which is being covered up. And, you know, having videos having taken down. This video is definitely going to be taken down because I'm talking about 5G. So we've got the electrosensitivity situation being covered up. People being censored talking about 5G. And now we've got that being replaced with, well, it's fibromyalgia. We don't know where it comes from. So anything that electronic weapons have been directly responsible for, they're treated as invisible psychosomatic illnesses that cannot be figured out, when that's not the case at all. You know, all the same symptoms of fibromyalgia, pain all over the body, massive toothache, it's also being attached to the New Age movement, you know, as signs that your DNA is leveling up or some other bollocks. So it's all electronic harassment. It's electronic warfare that is causing all this. And then what's happening now is that that's being reframed. Not only is that being reframed as a psychosomatic illness, it's also being used as an avenue to expand the psychiatric industry, and in particular, pharmaceuticals, which are a $1.27 trillion industry. Okay? Not even billions, trillions. It's in the trillions. Like that's how big pharmaceuticals are. They're in the fucking trillions. So what they're doing is they're having all these symptoms caused by electrosensitivity and electronic weapons being fired on the public. They're taking all that and they're treating it as psychosomatic. That's the first thing they're doing. The second thing they're doing is they're treating it as illnesses that are either non-organic, meaning coming from an external source other than fucking radiation, non-ionized radiation, or they're treating it as something that's come from inside the body as a result of stress. Stress can indeed break down the body. We've seen that. You can see a marked difference between the videos that I used to post 7 years ago in comparison to now. You can see how stress breaks down and debilitates the body. But the way in which stress breaks down and debilitates the body, older generations will tell you it is a slow process. And if you have enough exercise, you have a good diet, you can mitigate some of these circumstances. There are plenty of people older than me who have been through even more stress than I have. They're not aging as rapidly as me. They're not aging as rapidly as people who have been exposed to electrosensitivity and directed energy weaponry. They're not exposing as quickly as we are. There's a reason for that. Okay? There's a reason for that. They're not aging as quickly as we are. And there's a reason behind all of it. My eyes are red, bro. They're not aging as quickly as we are. There's a reason for everything that's going on here. So what we've got is another situation where big organizations or big corporations covertly create problems. In this case, they covertly create it through the use of electrosensitivity and directed energy weaponry. So that's the problem that they've caused, which has caused strokes, heart attacks, pain all over the body, rapid aging. So they've created this problem through all of that. And then what they've done is they've given themselves enough time to cover up the problem by having people who are victims of electronic torture or who have been suffering from electrosensitivity, blacklisting those people so that nobody really listens to them. And the best way to do that is to not accuse them of a crime, because criminals still have rights. Accusing us of being more mentally ill than we are is actually a lot more effective than just accusing us of crimes. Because the thing is, criminals have rights when it comes to their treatments. They might not have that much rights in comparison to the average citizen, but they still have some level of autonomy. When you are deemed as a mental health patient, and especially if you're deemed incompetent, that's all your rights gone. All of them. So when you basically say that a TI is paranoid schizophrenic, or you say that somebody suffering with electrosensitivity is paranoid schizophrenic, because let's not forget, non-ionized radiation also causes hallucinations. So when they're accused of being paranoid schizophrenic, it not only fulfills the task of blacklisting the person or smearing the person or isolating the person. It's not only that, but if they're deemed incompetent enough, it can diminish admissibility of evidence in court. And also, if you're deemed incompetent enough, you can have every fucking thing, every piece of your rights taken away from you. No traveling, no, you can't do shit. If you're deemed incompetent enough, they can pull a Britney Spears on your ass. And remember what they did to her. Remember what was done to her. Everybody's saying, oh, it's Jamie Spears, it's Jamie Spears. But this is a systemic crime. Certain members of the family can be chosen as handlers, but they will also become the scapegoats if people get too close to figuring out what the system is doing to people. That's why having handlers close to the target is useful, because then they can just turn around. But if the system gets caught out in engaging in this corruption against people like us, then they can just blame whoever they chose to be handler. That's what the handler is there for. They're there to provide a scapegoat for everything. The perps might not get away with it because everybody knows the perps, but the handler is handled in public. The perps are handled in private because everybody knows what the perps have been doing. But rest assured, that is the most effective way to handle your enemies, to make sure they don't have any rights. That way, if defense systems are caught out and pharmaceutical companies are caught out doing when they're not supposed to be doing, they still have a get out clause, because all of this is the word of a paranoid schizophrenic. So, yeah, I lost my track of thought, but long story short, everything ties in. So there's an anti-war effort as well. You have to remember that. There are anti-war chapters all over the UK. I don't know how long I'm going to be staying in Brighton for, because you know how gang stalkers work. Anytime a TI shows that they have more control or more confidence in the situation, that's when they want to move you. So I don't know how long I've got here, but I know that wherever I move to in this country, there's going to be an anti-war chapter. And let's talk about, speaking of which, they're trying to, there's an effort to deport descendants of Jamaica back to Rwanda as well, even though there's no real proof of that. But thinking about that, there's one TI that I know who is relatives with somebody in the UN, and they've seen the directed energy weapons being used against Rwandans firsthand. They used to work for a construction company, and they've seen the effects of the electronic torture being used on Africans. I don't know if you remember Winnie Mangwende. She's Zimbabwean. She knows firsthand about how MK Ultra has been used in Africa. It might explain all the economic downturns, and the fact that Africa has been at war for decades now, since Britain, isn't there anymore. Really think about it. Anywhere where technology is your Achilles heel, they can get to you through this electronic weaponry, through voice to skull. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. There's always an avenue. There's always an avenue for me to at least investigate and get to know what the truth is. If not speak it, there's always an avenue. There are always places that I can go, things that I could say, and things that I could reveal. Because I'm not revealing anything that isn't already out there. Not revealing anything that isn't already out there. But yeah, 2 years ago, I wrote to Lloyd Russell Moyle's office. I wrote to Brighton Homemove. I made sure the second I landed there that I made myself aware to these people. And I knew if I was going to tell the truth and talk about this electronic torture stuff and all that type of stuff, that they would turn around and say, oh, she's paranoid schizophrenic. If I'm paranoid schizophrenic, they're going to make damn sure that I get somewhere to live. And don't let any attempted sectioning fool you either. Because there are quite a few people with all the symptoms that I just discussed, as a result of non-ionized radiation. Hallucination is one of the effects of electrosensitivity. How many people suffering from hallucinations do you think I'm going to find in the mental home? I'm just saying, bro. But there's always a way forward. There is always a way. Anyway, that 2 years back memory revealed a lot for me, a lot more than I thought. I was really trying to leave Brighton, and it wasn't because I didn't love the place. I mean, fucking hell, like I don't know where I'm going to go next, but I know that Brighton has my heart for the rest of my fucking life. Like, I love this place. I will never stop loving this place. London, my family's there, but apart from my family, which are basically the only bright spot of being in London, and even then that was a mess. Like, and I'm sorry, it's the truth. Even then that was a fucking mess. Like, there's nothing really about London that's wonderful apart from central London and going to all those posh places that low-key didn't accept black people in it. Like, the posh areas of London is the only thing I miss about London. Whereas with Brighton, it doesn't matter where I go. In Brighton, there's always something. There's always something. Even going back to Hove, I don't have the best memories of Hove, but Hove is beautiful. And I had so many good times there as well as bad times there. Same with this place. There are so many good times here. There's been bad times, sure, but there's so many good times here. Brighton is one of those places where the best moments of my life here are the best moments that I've actually lived. There's no fake aspirations or false aspirations attached to it. Brighton is one of those cities that I've lived in that all the best moments are attached to me and the life that I've lived. It's not attached to something that I wanted to attain. It's attached to something that I got. Wasn't much in comparison to my ambitions, but it was attached to something that I actually had. Whereas in London, I missed the potential. I loved the potential of what I could be in London. Here, I love the reality of living here. There's more racism, sure. There's more fucking crackheads around here, sure. But the reality of living here has been so much more fulfilling than I ever gave it credit for. No matter what happens, I will always treasure my time in this city. Always. But I know that at some point they're going to try to move me, or they're going to try something to gain control. Like the gang stalkers are going to, I call them gang stalkers when really they're just informal agents, really. I know they're going to try something in a bid to regain control of the situation. Right now I have too much control. I have too much control. I know too much. Reporting my social media, it's only worked up to a certain point. It hasn't worked in the way that they needed it to. Because again, the whole time you're on your phone or the whole time you're online, you're exposed to electrosensitivity. If I have minimal time on social media, then I'm not exposed to it anymore. So whatever these people do, it backfires. There's no wiggle room. They have to find something. There's no wiggle room. They got to find something. None. They're trying to find something. Yeah, so, yeah. Lady Gaga came out about fibromyalgia, and yeah. I wrote something down in here. I could read it to you. Yeah. But I think I've already said everything that I need to. The fibromyalgia, the only difference between the quasi-science of the conspiracy theorist and the quasi-science of celebrities and stars is that one is well-financed, quasi-science, that is covering up something. And the other is hazarding a guess in a bid to get to the truth. Hazarding a guess to get to the truth. That's the, and they're not well financed. That's the difference between the fucking, the celebrity or the politician or the health professional over the QAnon conspiracy theorist. Lack of funding and different intentions. It's quasi-science either way, but here we are. So it will be interesting to see how this all develops. But if you want to know more about directed energy weapons and electronic warfare, you can check out the sites of Raytheon. You can check out BAE Systems, especially talks explicitly about electronic warfare. And you can also check out Lockheed. I wanted to check out, I think it's EDOMBM, something like that. Hang on. There's a defense systems company here in Brighton that were apparently, it's EDOMBM Technology Limited. and they were involved. I think they were involved with yeah, they were involved with a war crime or something. They were suspected of a war crime. Lloyd Russell Moyle himself was condemning it. He was condemning the arms company. Apparently, they were involved in a war crime in Yemen. I'd be willing to bet that was probably experimentation into the weaponry. They do that sometimes as well. Arms defense systems do that. So when it comes to civilized countries, they'll kind of experiment with more invisible weaponry, like microwave weapons, directed energy weapons, laser weapons, sonar weapons, voice to skull. So they'll experiment with all kinds of different invisible technology in more civilized countries. But any war-torn countries, they might use civilians in war-torn countries in order to test out more obvious weaponry like thermobaric bombs or, you know, or shells. They call them mortar in the defense industry. In defense industry terms and military terms, the bullets are called mortar shells. So they experiment with the more loud crash bang type of weaponry in places that are already war zones, because then nobody suspects. If it's a country that's already torn apart by war and war is still going on, then it's a perfect cover for other types of weaponry to be experimented on. And even though I don't know for sure, I'm gathering that that's exactly what these war crimes are. Experimentation, unlawful experimentation. And you have to remember EDO MBM, I think, is a subsidiary of Lockheed. And I don't know if you remember one of my videos, I called Lockheed and I asked them if they test on human experimentations. Instead of saying no, they could have just said no. They could have said no. Like, if you're not experimenting on humans, like, you could just say no. Anybody else would be like, no, we do not test on living human subjects. If you'd like to come in, we can discuss how and where we test them. They refuse to answer me. That's not just a sign of being cautious in terms of spilling secrets potentially to foreign intelligence, but that also alludes to guilt. Because if I ask you, are you testing on humans, and you can't even answer me? This is why they need the mental health arm. That was a wink. I'm sorry. Force of habit. But this is why they need mental health. And you have to remember, in Nazi Germany, the so-called mentally feeble were the first on the chopping block. It's all part of a pattern. There's a whole pattern there. There's a whole pattern there. One final word that I want to leave you with. Hang on. Did I cover up the mic? I'm sorry. One final word that I want to leave you with. If you feel specific pains in your body and you want to know if weapons have been fired on your body, put your hand above your head like this. Leave it there for a couple of minutes. Like, I can already feel pulsating energy through my fingers. Okay? That's not natural. You do that, then it's either one or two things. Either it's the Wi-Fi, which is likely, or it's the directed energy weapons being fired on your body. But you will feel pulsating waves through your hand when you hover them above the crown of your head. I did this one time and I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. But it absolutely, yeah. If you get pains in your body and you want to find out if you're being electronically targeted, you do that. That will tell you. But anyway, I love you guys so much, my fellow TIs. Peace and blessings. Mwah. You guys stay strong. I know you can. I love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.